Imagine you are the commander of an American guided missile destroyer in the Red Sea. A blip flashes on the radar screen. It is an incoming suicide drone, moving at over 100 miles per hour. Intelligence tells you it is likely a Shahed drone, or a locally modified variant. It is effectively a flying lawnmower packed with explosives, and it cost the enemy roughly $20,000 to build. To stop it, you give the order to fire. A vertical launch tube on the deck bursts open. A Standard Missile-2 streaks into the night sky, finds the target, and obliterates it. You have successfully defended your ship, but you have just spent $2,100,000 to destroy $20,000 of plywood and commercial electronics. You won the battle, but you are rapidly losing the economic war. Zoom out and you will see that the math of modern warfare has fundamentally broken down. For the last 50 years, air defense was built around interceptors. These are highly advanced, ridiculously expensive rockets designed to shoot down other fast-moving rockets. But the global threat matrix has changed. Non-state actors and smaller militaries have realized that you do not need to sink a billion-dollar warship to defeat it. You just need to bankrupt its magazine. A single destroyer carries about 90 vertical launch cells. If you fire a swarm of cheap drones, the defender has to shoot back. When the ship runs out of missiles, it is defenseless and forced to retreat. This is the story of how a century-old science fiction concept has suddenly become the most desperate, urgent priority of the global military complex. This is the story of how directed energy is being weaponized to fix the broken economics of combat, and how light itself is changing the future of war. To understand why militaries are panicking, you have to look at the sheer asymmetry of modern air defense. The data shows a massive spike in asymmetric drone warfare. When intercepting threats in the Middle East or Eastern Europe, air defense operators face a terrifying calculus. The Patriot PAC-3 missile costs $3,729,769. The Aster 30 missile costs $2 million. Even the famous Iron Dome interceptor, the Tamir, costs up to $100,000 per shot. Against a cruise missile or a ballistic weapon, this trade-off makes sense. But against a swarm of cheap, mass-produced drones, it is financially unsustainable. Headlines around the world read that Western militaries are firing million-dollar weapons at $1,000 drones. And this leads to an inevitable mathematical defeat. You cannot outspend a drone factory using artisanal, handcrafted interceptor missiles. But right now, in secret testing ranges in Scotland and the deserts of the Middle East, a radical solution is being deployed. Directed energy weapons, high-energy lasers. But even as these lasers solve the cost problem, physicists ran into a terrifying obstacle early in development, one that almost killed the laser program entirely, and it has everything to do with the very air we breathe. We will get to that atmospheric nightmare in a moment. First, we need to understand how military lasers actually work. When most people think of laser weapons, they imagine the cinematic, pulsating bolts of neon light from movies that blow things up on impact. Real military lasers do not look or act like that. In fact, they are entirely invisible to the human eye, operating in the infrared spectrum, and they are completely silent. They do not kill with kinetic force. They kill with thermal energy. When a directed energy weapon fires, it projects an intensely focused beam of light onto the target. The objective is to heat a specific, highly vulnerable component of the drone, like the battery, the fuel line, or the explosive payload, until it reaches a critical temperature and violently detonates or melts. This requires what military engineers call dwell time. The laser must stay perfectly locked onto a specific spot on a drone moving hundreds of miles per hour, miles away, for several consecutive seconds. For decades, the United States and other powers tried to build these weapons using chemical lasers. In the early 2000s, the Pentagon mounted a massive chemical oxygen iodine laser inside a Boeing 747 aircraft. It was a marvel of engineering, but it was practically useless for routine combat. Chemical lasers required highly toxic, corrosive fuels. They were massive, and they were a logistical nightmare. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the telecommunications industry. The internet runs on fiber optic cables, which carry data using light. Over the years, scientists learned how to amplify this light by doping the fiber optic cables with rare earth elements, like erbium and ytterbium. By combining multiple fiber lasers into one perfectly aligned beam, defense contractors realized they could generate massive amounts of power, safely and efficiently using electricity alone. This is the birth of the solid-state fiber laser, and it completely rewrote the rules of engagement. Let us look at the financial data, because the numbers are staggering. In January 2024, the United Kingdom successfully test-fired a directed energy weapon called DragonFire at a testing range in northwest Scotland. The DragonFire is a 50-kilowatt class laser. The British Ministry of Defence revealed that firing this weapon for 10 seconds costs the equivalent of running a standard household heater for 1 hour. The exact cost per shot is just $13. $13 to instantly eliminate an aerial target. Declassified documents later revealed that the system is so precise, it is the equivalent of hitting a 1-pound coin from a kilometer away. The Royal Navy was so impressed with the results that they accelerated the program, ordering the DragonFire to be installed on frontline destroyers by 2027. But the United Kingdom is not the only one pushing this technology to the front lines. In December 2025, Israel deployed the Iron Beam, officially known in Hebrew as Eitan's Light. Operating alongside the kinetic Iron Dome, the Iron Beam uses an incredibly powerful 100-kilowatt fiber laser. The cost per interception for the Iron Beam is an astonishing $3.50. $3.50 compared to the tens of thousands of dollars for a traditional Tamir interceptor. This is the ultimate dream of military logisticians, a weapon with an infinitely deep magazine. As long as the generator has diesel fuel to produce electricity, the laser can keep firing. It never runs out of bullets. It never needs a supply ship to reload its vertical launch tubes. But the real world is not a sterile laboratory, and this is where the engineers ran into the wall of atmospheric physics. When you shoot a 100-kilowatt beam of intense light through the Earth's atmosphere, the beam interacts with the air molecules. It heats the air in its path. As the air heats up, it expands, which changes its refractive index. The air itself acts like a lens, which causes the laser beam to spread out, diffuse, and lose its lethal focus. This phenomenon is called thermal blooming. If you look at the numbers from early testing, thermal blooming was catastrophic. A laser that could melt steel at 1 kilometer became completely harmless at 3 kilometers because the beam had expanded too much. And that is just in clear air. Introduce rain, fog, dust, or smoke, and the laser scatters even faster. Water droplets absorb the infrared light, essentially boiling away the laser's energy before it ever reaches the target. This meant that on cloudy days, the military's most advanced weapon was essentially a giant, expensive flashlight. To solve this, scientists had to steal a solution from the world of astronomy. For decades, astronomers struggled to take clear pictures of distant stars because the Earth's atmosphere distorts starlight, causing it to twinkle. To fix this, they invented adaptive optics. They built deformable mirrors controlled by high-speed computers that physically changed their shape thousands of times per second to perfectly counteract the turbulence in the atmosphere. Defense contractors took this exact technology and reversed it. Before a weapon like DragonFire or Iron Beam fires its main lethal laser, it shoots a low-power targeting laser at the drone. The sensors analyze exactly how the atmosphere distorts the reflection of that low-power beam. The computer then calculates the precise atmospheric turbulence and rapidly deforms the internal mirrors of the weapon. When the main high-power beam fires a fraction of a second later, it is pre-distorted perfectly to cancel out the atmospheric interference. By the time the beam hits the target miles away, it has converged into a razor-sharp point of intense heat. This technological leap is what allowed these systems to move from science fiction to the battlefield. Today, the United States Army is actively testing 50-kilowatt lasers mounted on Stryker armored vehicles in the deserts of the Middle East, specifically targeting the swarms of small drones that harass ground troops. The United States Navy has deployed the Optical Dazzling Interdictor Navy system, known as Odin, and the high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance system known as Helios on active warships. One massive advantage we have not touched on is the time of flight. When a ship fires a traditional interceptor missile, that missile has to accelerate, fight gravity, and maneuver to intercept the target. The target has time to take evasive maneuvers. A laser beam travels at the speed of light, 300,000 kilometers per second. There is absolutely no time of flight. The moment the firing button is pressed, the energy is already on the target. You cannot dodge a laser. You cannot outmaneuver light. The only defense is to coat the drone in highly reflective mirrored materials or specialized ablative armor that slowly burns away, buying the drone an extra few seconds to reach its target. And engineers are already experimenting with pulsing lasers that act like a jackhammer of light to shatter those exact reflective coatings. The battlefield is transforming, but what happens when an adversary launches a swarm of 100 drones simultaneously? A laser can only destroy one target at a time. It requires a few seconds of dwell time to burn through each drone, then it has to slew to the next target, lock on, and fire again. If the swarm is large enough and flying fast enough, the laser simply will not have enough time to burn through all of them before they reach the ship. This is why military commanders are adamant that lasers will never completely replace missiles. Missiles are still the ultimate over-the-horizon weapon. A standard missile can hit a target over 100 miles away in the middle of a typhoon, regardless of the weather. But missiles are the shield for the outer perimeter. Lasers are the new infinite shield for the inner perimeter. If a swarm of 50 drones attacks, you let the lasers burn through 30 of them for free, and you use your expensive kinetic missiles to mop up the remaining 20. You conserve your magazine, you save millions of dollars, and you stay in the fight. The fallout of this technological shift is just beginning to ripple through the global economy. For the past decade, insurgent groups and smaller nations believed they had found the ultimate loophole in superpower dominance. By utilizing cheap, mass-produced drones, they could bleed the wealthiest militaries completely dry. They could paralyze global trade in places like the Red Sea simply by forcing navies to exhaust their expensive interceptors. But the widespread deployment of directed energy weapons violently closes that loophole. The broader implication here is that the fundamental currency of modern warfare is shifting. The currency of defense is no longer the physical missile sitting in a launch tube waiting to be expended. The currency of defense is now the kilowatt. As long as a nation can generate power, it can defend its airspace. We are entering an era where light itself is the ultimate ammunition. The economics of war have been rebalanced, and the sky is no longer safe for the cheap drone swarm. This incident changed air defense forever, but if you want to see an even crazier military blunder, you need to watch this video right here.